My child, I want you to listen to me now without rushing, without doubting, without letting your weary mind interrupt what I am saying. I know how long you have waited. I know how many nights you have stared at the ceiling wondering if your prayers were still reaching me. I know how many mornings you woke up already tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the weight of carrying unanswered questions for so many years. You assumed that because you could not see me moving, nothing was happening. But I tell you now with authority and love that some of my greatest work is done in silence, far beyond what human eyes can perceive. While you measured progress by calendars and birthdays, I measured progress by readiness. While you counted years lost, I counted strength gained. While you questioned why doors stayed shut, I was guarding you from paths that would have broken what you could not afford to lose. You believed the stillness meant abandonment. I tell you the stillness was strategy. I was not absent. I was intentional. There has been a war surrounding your life that you were never meant to fight with your hands. You felt the pressure, the confusion, the heaviness, but you could not identify its source. That is because much of what was happening did not originate in your circumstances, but in the unseen realm. While you wrestled with discouragement, I was confronting opposition. While you tried to survive another day, I was dismantling assignments that were meant to take you out quietly, slowly, without anyone noticing. The enemy did not want to destroy you loudly. He wanted to exhaust you until you laid down willingly. But I did not allow it. You assumed your delays were failures. You thought the interruptions were punishments. You questioned whether you missed your moment, whether age had disqualified you, whether time had run out. I need you to understand this clearly. Nothing that was meant for you has passed you by. I do not operate on the clock that humans worship. I operate on fulfillment. I operate on completion. I operate on purpose that cannot be rushed without damage. I held certain things back because if they had arrived earlier, they would have crushed you rather than blessed you. There were conversations you were never invited into that would have pulled you into compromise. There were opportunities that looked good on the surface but carried consequences your heart would not have survived. There were relationships you prayed for that I intentionally blocked because they would have drained the very strength you needed for this season. I was not denying you. I was defending you. I was protecting the future version of you that you had not yet become strong enough to imagine. I watched as you blamed yourself for battles that were never yours to win. I saw you replay mistakes, rehearse regrets, and punish yourself for decisions made with limited understanding. I never asked you to carry that burden. I never demanded perfection from you. I asked for trust. And even when your trust trembled, even when it barely whispered instead of confidently declared, I honored it. I honored every prayer you prayed through tears. I honored every moment you chose to keep going when quitting would have felt easier. You need to know this now. The opposition you felt was not random. It was targeted. Your life carries weight. Your endurance carries meaning. Your survival has disrupted plans you will never fully see this side of eternity. There are people whose lives have been spared because you stayed alive when you wanted to give up. There are generational patterns that stopped with you simply because you endured. You thought you were just surviving. I tell you, you were standing guard. While you were asking me to remove the struggle, I was using it to sharpen your discernment. While you asked me to hurry, I was teaching you how to remain steady when everything shakes. While you felt overlooked, I was positioning you where visibility would not corrupt your heart. I had to make sure that when what is coming arrives, it does not own you. I had to make sure you could hold it without losing yourself. I know you felt forgotten because others seemed to move ahead. You watched younger people rise faster. You watched doors open for them while yours stayed closed. You asked me why your faithfulness seemed unrewarded. Hear me carefully now. What I am preparing for you requires depth, not speed. It requires wisdom, not impulse. It requires a heart that has been stripped of illusions and anchored in truth. That kind of preparation takes time. That kind of preparation often happens in obscurity. There were moments you begged me for answers and heard nothing. But silence does not mean indifference. Silence means something sacred is being handled with care. I do not shout over processes that require precision. I do not rush what must be built to last. You wanted relief. I was building resilience. You wanted escape. I was establishing authority within you. Every tear you cried watered something unseen. Every disappointment refined your ability to recognize what truly matters. Every delay forced you to lean into me when your own strength failed. You are not weaker for what you endured. You are more grounded. You are more aware. You are more dangerous to the enemy now than you were when you were younger and stronger in body, but less seasoned in spirit. The hidden war was never about stopping you from starting. It was about stopping you from finishing. But I am the one who finishes what I begin. And I have not let go of you for a single moment. Even when your grip loosened, mine did not. Even when you questioned me, I never questioned you. I saw the end from the beginning and I declared that you would stand. So breathe now. Let go of the shame you were never meant to carry. Release the fear that whispers it is too late. The war that raged unseen has shifted. The pressure you felt was not meant to break you, only to reveal that you were stronger than you knew. I was there in every moment you thought you were alone. And now that you understand this, now that you see that nothing was wasted, you are ready to hear what comes next. My child, I know the question that echoed in your heart when the weight became heavier instead of lighter. You whispered it in frustration, sometimes in anger, sometimes through tears. You said, "Why now?" You said, "Why when I have already given everything I have?" You believed that after surviving so much, the road would finally smooth out. But instead, the resistance increased. The pressure tightened. The attacks became more personal, more relentless, more exhausting. I want you to understand this with clarity and truth, because misunderstanding this season almost cost you your hope. The battle intensified because you were nearing something sacred. The opposition grew stronger because you were stepping closer to the edge of fulfillment. This is not how humans expect victory to arrive, but this is how it has always unfolded in the unseen. The greatest resistance often appears when surrender would be easiest, when fatigue is deepest, when endurance feels unfair. That is because the enemy counts on timing. He waits until you are tired enough to believe the lie that rest only comes through quitting. You thought your weariness disqualified you. You believed your exhaustion meant weakness. I tell you now, exhaustion is often evidence of faithfulness. You did not grow tired because you were doing nothing. You grew tired because you refused to stop. You kept standing when others walked away. You kept believing when doubt begged for agreement. You kept obeying when obedience no longer felt rewarding. That persistence threatened forces you could not see. There was a reason the pressure became emotional instead of physical. There was a reason discouragement targeted your thoughts instead of your body. The enemy knew he could not destroy you through circumstances alone. He tried to convince you to destroy yourself internally. He whispered that your best years were behind you. He told you that you had already missed your chance. He magnified your age, your regrets, your losses, hoping you would confuse timing with disqualification. But I never measure destiny by age. I measure it by obedience. When the attacks increased, you assumed something had gone wrong. You wondered if you had angered me. You questioned whether you were being punished. Hear me clearly now. I do not punish perseverance. I refine it. I do not abandon those who struggle. I strengthen them. What you felt was not my hand pushing you away. It was resistance reacting to your proximity to breakthrough. The enemy is not omniscient. He does not know the future the way I do. But he recognizes patterns. He knows that when a person refuses to quit after years of waiting, something unshakable has been formed. He knows that endurance births authority. He knows that those who survive long seasons of obscurity emerge with clarity and depth that cannot be manipulated. And that is why the pressure escalated when you were already tired. He hoped fatigue would silence your faith. I allowed you to feel the limits of your strength so you would finally stop depending on it. For much of your life, you survived by grit, responsibility, and sheer determination. You learned to carry burdens quietly. You learned to be strong because others depended on you. But strength without surrender eventually collapses. I needed you to reach the end of yourself so you would lean fully into me. Not because I wanted to break you, but because I wanted to free you. You asked me why I did not remove the battle. I asked you to trust me through it. There is a difference. Removal brings relief. Endurance brings transformation. You were not just fighting to get through something. You were being changed by what you endured. Every time you chose to get up again, something inside you aligned more closely with my will. Every time you resisted bitterness, your heart became clearer. Every time you refused to harden, your compassion deepened. You were tempted to believe that rest would come only after the battle ended. But true rest comes when you stop fighting battles that are not yours. You were never meant to wrestle fear alone. You were never meant to argue with doubt by yourself. You were meant to bring it to me. And when you finally did, when you admitted you could not keep going on your own, the shift began. The intensity was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to expose what no longer belonged in your life. Old mindsets had to surface so they could be removed. Hidden fears had to reveal themselves so they could be healed. You could not carry those things into what I am bringing next. They would have contaminated the blessing. They would have limited the impact. So the pressure pressed them to the surface. I know there were days you felt like you were barely surviving. I know there were moments you questioned whether you had the strength to keep believing. But even then, even in your weakest moments, you never fully let go. You questioned, but you stayed. You doubted, but you endured. That matters more than flawless faith. That matters more than perfect obedience. Staying matters. The battle intensified because you were close. Close to clarity. Close to release. Close to seeing why nothing was wasted. Close to stepping into something that requires a heart refined by patience and pain. The resistance was loud because what is coming will speak louder. And now, as the noise begins to settle, as the pressure shifts, you will start to recognize the signs that this season is changing. Do not interpret past intensity as future threat. That chapter is closing. The warfare served its purpose. You are still standing, and because you are still standing, you are about to see why it was necessary. When you are ready, tell me, and I will show you what was being built beneath the surface all along. My child, there is a season I allow that feels darker than loss and quieter than waiting. It is the season where nothing around you seems to confirm what I promised. This is the underground season. It is the place where faith feels buried, where hope feels hidden, and where progress cannot be measured by anything you can see. This is the season you have been in longer than you ever expected. And I want you to understand now that this season was not a pause. It was preparation. You thought you were being buried. I tell you, you were being planted. You mistook stillness for stagnation. You believed silence meant neglect. But seeds do not grow in sunlight at first. They grow in darkness, pressed into soil, surrounded by pressure. The soil feels heavy. The space feels tight. Everything about it feels restrictive. Yet that pressure is what activates life. Without it, nothing takes root. I know how uncomfortable this season has been for you. I know how many times you said, "Nothing is changing," when in truth everything was changing beneath the surface. I know how often you measured your life against what it used to be and wondered how it shrank so quietly. I watched you grieve not only people and opportunities, but versions of yourself you no longer recognized. That grief was real. I did not ignore it. I honored it. But I did not allow it to define you. In the underground season, I was strengthening what could not be seen. I was growing roots deep enough to support what is coming next. Shallow roots cannot survive strong winds. Shallow faith collapses under weight. What I am preparing to entrust to you requires stability that only hidden growth can produce. You asked me why things were taking so long. I answer you now. I was making sure you would not fall when elevation arrived. You have lived long enough to know that not everything that grows quickly lasts. You have seen people rise fast and disappear faster. You have seen success ruin character. You have seen blessings become burdens when hearts were unprepared. I refuse to let that be your story. So I slowed the process. I deepened the work. I stripped away distractions that once felt essential, but would have weakened you later. There were days you felt useless because your activity decreased. You could no longer do what you once did. Your body tired faster. Your energy shifted. Your pace slowed. You assumed decline. I tell you it was refinement. I was teaching you that your worth is not tied to productivity. I was teaching you how to listen instead of striving, how to discern instead of chasing, how to rest without guilt. These lessons are not taught in movement. They are taught in stillness. The underground season forces honesty. When there is no applause, no validation, no visible success, you confront what truly motivates you. You confronted fears you buried decades ago. You faced regrets you avoided by staying busy. You wrestled with questions you never had time to ask. That was not punishment. That was healing. I do not heal what is hidden. I heal what is exposed. You learned patience in a way youth never could have taught you. You learned endurance not because you wanted to, but because you had no other choice. You learned humility as control slipped from your hands. And in that surrender, something holy took shape. You stopped trying to prove yourself. You stopped needing to be seen. You stopped fighting for recognition. And that is when your strength matured. Strength at this stage of life looks different than it once did. It is quieter. It is steadier. It does not announce itself. It knows when to speak and when to remain silent. It knows when to act and when to wait. This strength does not come from ambition. It comes from alignment. And alignment can only be built when ego is dismantled. You are not losing years. You are gaining wisdom. You are not falling behind. You are being set apart. You are not forgotten. You are being protected from premature exposure. The underground season shielded you while I reshaped you. It kept you from comparisons that would have discouraged you. It kept you from noise that would have confused you. It kept you close to me when distractions could have pulled you away. I know it felt lonely. Growth often is. Roots grow alone in the soil. No other seed can do that work for them. But solitude is not abandonment. It is focus. I needed your attention undivided. I needed your heart softened. I needed your expectations recalibrated. What you are stepping into now requires clarity that only solitude can produce. You may not realize it yet, but you no longer react the way you once did. You no longer panic at delays the way you used to. You no longer chase approval the way you once did. That is evidence of growth. That is strength built underground. That is preparation completed quietly. The underground season is ending. Roots have gone deep enough. The foundation is secure. What has been forming in secret is ready to emerge. And when it does, it will not struggle to stand. It will rise with stability. It will grow with confidence. It will endure storms without collapsing. You thought the waiting meant nothing was happening. I tell you now, the most important work of your life was happening where no one could see it. And because of that, what comes next will not shake you. It will confirm you. When you are ready, tell me, and I will speak to you about what is about to break open now. My child, listen to me closely, because this is not a message about someday. This is not a distant promise meant to keep you calm while nothing changes. This is about now. This is about the moment you are standing in, the threshold you are approaching, the shift that has already begun even if your eyes have not fully caught up yet. The underground season has done its work. The pressure has served its purpose. What was forming in silence is ready to speak. You have felt it, even if you could not explain it. A restlessness that is different from anxiety. A stirring that does not come from fear but from anticipation. Something inside you has been waking up. Old despair no longer fits the same way. Old lies no longer settle comfortably in your mind. You may still feel cautious, but you are no longer hopeless. That is because what I am about to release does not arrive loudly at first. It begins as recognition. Recognition that you are not finished. Recognition that your life still carries assignment. Recognition that I am not done writing your story. What is about to break open is not just an external change. It is an internal alignment. Doors open easily when hearts are already positioned correctly. I have been preparing you so that when movement begins, it does not overwhelm you. You are not stepping into chaos. You are stepping into order. You are not stepping into confusion. You are stepping into clarity. What once would have frightened you now will feel familiar because you were prepared in advance. I know you feared that restoration would require you to relive old pain. You thought moving forward meant reopening wounds. But I do not heal by re-traumatizing. I heal by redeeming. What is coming will not drag you backward. It will reinterpret what you endured. It will make sense of sacrifices you thought were unnoticed. It will place meaning where you once only saw loss. You will begin to see connections form naturally. Conversations will carry weight instead of draining you. Opportunities will align with peace instead of pressure. People will recognize something in you that you did not announce. This is not coincidence. This is confirmation. When I bring something forth, it fits. It does not force itself into place. It belongs. Do not underestimate how powerful quiet confidence has become in you. You no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to rush. That steadiness is what allows what is coming to remain. I am not adding noise to your life. I am adding purpose. I am not overwhelming your days. I am sharpening your focus. You will find yourself drawn toward what matters and gently disinterested in what does not. That is discernment. That is maturity. That is readiness. What is breaking open now will also restore your sense of usefulness. There were moments you believed your most impactful years were behind you. That was never true. Experience is not expiration. Wisdom is not weakness. Your voice carries depth because it has been tested. Your presence carries authority because it has endured. You have something to offer that only comes from having lived, having lost, having waited, and having stayed faithful anyway. I am opening space for you to influence without striving, to serve without depleting yourself, to give without emptying your soul. Balance is no longer optional. It is essential. And you are ready for it now because you finally understand that rest is not laziness, and boundaries are not selfish. They are stewardship. You will notice that what once felt urgent now feels ordered. You will sense timing instead of pressure. That is because I am leading, not chasing. Follow that peace. Obedience in this season will feel lighter because it aligns with who you have become. You are not trying to be someone else anymore. You are finally comfortable being who you are. What breaks open now will also ripple outward. Others will be strengthened by your steadiness. They will not come to you for hype. They will come for grounding. They will trust you because you do not exaggerate hope. You embody it. And that kind of influence lasts. Do not fear visibility. You are no longer hiding, but you are not exposed either. You are covered by wisdom. You know when to speak and when to remain silent. You know when to step forward and when to wait. That discernment will protect you. What opens now will not overwhelm you because you are no longer trying to control outcomes. You trust me to guide them. This is not a season of proving. It is a season of unfolding. One step will reveal the next. You do not need the full map. You need daily obedience. You need attentiveness. You need to stay present. I will handle the rest. I know you are cautious because disappointment taught you to be. That is understandable. But do not let old wounds dictate new decisions. This season is different because you are different. You are not entering it desperate. You are entering it anchored. And that makes all the difference. What is breaking open now will not scream for attention. It will settle into place and grow steadily. It will feel sustainable. It will feel right. And as it unfolds, you will realize that nothing was delayed unnecessarily. Nothing was wasted. Everything prepared you for this moment. So stand up straight now. Not in pride, but in confidence. Lift your head. Not in defiance, but in expectation. You are not waiting anymore. You are walking. And I am with you every step of the way, just as I always have been.